Yeah, the last 2 weeks just kind of working in the tap room. We've had the garage door open and multiple people every day stop by and share their stories, and it's really exciting to see because they're not necessarily always people that you would think are going to come in and drink ciders, but they're people that are going to come in and share their stories for real, and they're worth being heard.
Hey, welcome to Tap That AZ. I'm your host, Eric Walters, and in this episode, I'm joined by AZ Beer Jedi. We sit down with brothers Jason and Josh Duran from Cider in downtown Mesa. We talk about giving back to the veterans who fought for this country and the challenges of selling cider in a craft beer world. Let's tap into Cider. I am in historic Mesa at Cider, hanging out with the dudes from Cider. I've got AZ Beer Jedi here. Cider guys, thanks for joining us. It's pretty awesome. So, you guys want to introduce yourselves? We'll start with you.
My name's Jason, and I'm one of the co-founders of Cider.
I'm Josh, the other co-founder.
And we are Cider.
We are Cider.
Right. And I'm Stefan, otherwise known as AZ Beer Jedi, and I'm just here hanging out.
He came here for the free cider is really what it was.
Yeah. Sampling and promoting.
We saw him stumbling down the sidewalk. And,
He'll leave as soon as the sample cups are gone.
Yeah, exactly.
I see a few barrels, so we're going to be okay.
Yeah, all right.
I think we'll be good for a little bit, yeah. So, guys, thanks for joining me. This is pretty awesome. We've been excited to do this.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah. So, why did you guys get into cider?
In 2012, Jason was deployed with the Marine Corps in Afghanistan. And while he was there, he hit 2 IEDs and suffered 2 traumatic brain injuries. So when he returned, I was kind of going through a lot of brain doctor appointments, a lot of trying to get everything sorted out, going through the medical retirement process. And during that time, I owned a brand development company. And so I could rearrange my schedule to kind of do whatever. And he had mentioned that one of his doctors had told him, hey, you need to find like some sort of a therapeutic hobby, something to kind of keep you focused during the day, keep your interest going, and it'll help with a lot of the other processes, you know. And while he was gone, I had done a little bit of research on what to do as like a support person, a family member, being a brother, and not really knowing anybody that's been in the military or been in war. I wanted to make sure that I kind of knew like what is my role, because I don't have any idea of how things go down, and one of the things was finding a hobby to encourage the person alongside. So we had kind of looked at brewing beer because we had always talked about that, and we were at his house out in Gilbert and kind of felt like every other garage was brewing beer.
Exactly.
We can drink all of their beer and enjoy it. How could we kind of create something, or at least experiment with something that hadn't been around?
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of it, and then we're going to talk about Ireland. And
Yeah, so we stopped in Ireland on the way back from Afghanistan. That was kind of my first experience with cider outside of the 2 big brands,
the mainstreams.
the mainstreams, and I was impressed. I had a flight of beer and cider there, and they serve it like it's just a normal. It wasn't like here. It's like, can I get a cider? And they're like, well, yeah, we have, but there it's like it's kind of a mainstream thing. Like everybody drinks it like it's normal, like a beer or anything else. And so that was kind of my first experience, and it wasn't like I drank it and was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna make this. Like, this is what I want to do with my life,
Yeah.
And it was just kind of, I had it was good. And then Josh had some in Canada. It was a little bit different than what was here, and so like he was saying, we were talking about making beer, and everybody was doing it kind of at that time, it seemed like, all of our friends. And so we thought we'd try to see if we could make something different here, and dive down into the cider making thing. So I think it was a little bit after I got back was his birthday, so I bought him a cider making kit from the homebrew store.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we made it,
Nice.
and it was it was horrid. It was pretty terrible. I think we were like, oh, cool, we made alcohol, and then we just flushed it all.
Really?
So,
It wasn't
yeah,
even drinkable?
It was terrible.
Like in what way? Like, was it just like vinegar?
It was just super, super sugary. It was really harsh alcohol. I mean, you could tell that most of it was just, it wasn't necessarily the apples being fermented. It was, at that time we didn't know, but looking back on it, it was just fermented sugar.
Yeah.
This is a bunch of sugar, added sugar. Because, those kits are like, you pour this in there, you add some water, you add like bags of sugar, and you go, right? So it's like apple extract with a bunch of sugar, So it probably took a while. My wife kind of saw that I was super interested in it, and at that time wasn't really interested in anything. So she ordered me a book on cider making, and at the time I was going through speech therapy, I was having troubles reading, and I went through this book. I read it and started doing a lot of research online, and we continued to make batches. It was probably a solid year though before we made anything that we're like, we could drink this.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a long time.
That's kind of why we got in. That's why we went down the cider route. There was no existing like recipes, like in beer making. There was no like do this and do this, And so for us, it was kind of like that's the best hobby to have is when you're just walking down a path trying to figure out what are we doing.
It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah,
for you
so
guys.
we had that
Yeah.
homebrew kit and it was terrible, and like the next thought was, okay, that's a good start. Now let's go. He knew somebody who had a family farm in Duncan, and we picked up a ton of just leftover apples from them. He built a press and
That's cool.
pressed it, and so it was like just constantly like, okay, that was terrible. What is this? Okay, that was a little bit better, but it was still terrible, and it was different, and just kept rolling. And so the experimentation of it is what really made it like the most interesting, because we
Yeah.
didn't know where we were going, and a business was not the end goal. It was just the fun of being together and the hobby to really like help him.
Yeah, at that
keep
time
going,
it was really like, okay, like he was saying about the recipes, the main cider producers weren't really saying like what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay,
Nor did you wanna
take
know.
apple juice and you just throw yeast in it, add some sugar to it, so you
got
can
a
have
lot
more
of. You
alcohol.
reached out and
that
got
was
vague answers.
That's what it was,
And you have a science background too, right?
Yeah,
so you kind of understood that part of it.
We'd been doing so kind of what he was saying about doctors, my therapist saying like you need to do something like a hobby. Since I was wounded, I had 100% GI Bill, so I was like, well, I can get paid to go to school, and so what am I going to do? I just got my degree before I went overseas, and it was in fire science emergency management. And I was gung ho to be a firefighter, and went through the intern academy, and I knew that I couldn't have somebody else depending on me to save their life, if it were to ever come to that. And so decided that I shouldn't pursue that. But what do I do? Well, I've always had a garden in my backyard, pretty good sized garden. And I'd heard about horticulture therapy, and so I knew if that's a real thing, and I love being in the garden, it was therapeutic for me, that maybe that would be my future, And so everything kind of started merging together. Went to school for sustainable horticulture, and it was like learning more and more about plants. And the more I learned about plants, the more I understood what was happening with the ciders. And the more we got into the sciences, then the more I could kind of change the way that we were doing it, and my understanding of, I did biochemistry of yeast, so I really understood what was happening from fermentation aspect, and so that really helped us refine, like between years 2 and 3, like we changed dramatically. It wasn't just And still at that time, it wasn't like, this is what we're going to do. Like, if we're going to open up a cidery, and, you know, it was more just, it was getting more exciting, getting deeper into building flavor profiles and understanding really what was happening from the science of it, you know.
Right. Yeah. And that's really interesting too, because like you understood the process behind it. It's not just follow these steps. Okay, now what? Okay, maybe I'll switch this ingredient. Like you understood like the science behind it. That's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like far beyond. It started to come far beyond like this. Okay, we know what yeasts we like and the flavor profiles that they put off, and it makes it taste good. So let's just keep doing that. But it took it from there and just kept evolving it into knowing basically the science behind the like entire process. Like, this is exactly why this is doing this. This is how we should be treating this and this, you know. And he just took it and started creating procedures of like, this is how we are going to get the best possible fermentation, and then moving from there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
At a certain point, you guys, I know you had to have had like the aha moment. You talked about, you know, your first year, like you didn't get something that you liked, you know, and then the trial and error and then the experimentation factor. But when was the moment where it's just like, you know what, this is damn good. Like, we got to do something else that's as good but different. Like, when was that moment?
For me is when I became neighbors with all, or like friends with all my neighbors. And they started coming over and the garage doors open, you know, because
They knew what to expect.
we came from Kansas where you know all your neighbors. They're all your friends. You cook out, you do all this stuff. And been in Arizona since 2004 and lived in the same house for the last 4 years and only knew one of my neighbors. Well, now I know all of them, you know, because when
they
you're
come
out in
to
the
get
garage,
cider.
people come by and they ask questions. And before you know it, like, you're having a cider with them and, you know, you become friends really quick.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, that kind of led to people being like, you need to do something. You need to be able to like sell this to people. People need to try this. And, that was kind of my aha moment.
Yeah. I don't know, because you're so wrapped up in the hobby of it and the fun of it that you kind of have all these different moments. But I think the biggest aha moment for me was when we had a friend who was like, hey, I know somebody at Fox Restaurant Group. Would you guys be interested in putting your cider before them, you know? And like Jason was saying, like, we didn't have a business. It was a hobby. But there was some, you know, like, as things go and you start to like the product, friends and neighbors are starting to like it. There's a part of it where a little bit of ego maybe is you want to hear from somebody that you don't know and who is legit in the profession and can say feedback.
Yeah.
And so I think we did about 10 different flavors and we bottled them up and took them and did this meeting with, it ended up being a beverage director at Fox Restaurant Group. And we sat down and he started tasting them, and it's like not a lot of feedback, just kind of asking a lot of questions. And we hadn't been in that environment before, so we didn't really know what was going on. And
A little intimidating.
Oh,
a
very
little
intimidating.
yeah, a little intimidating, especially because we're at one of the restaurants, just sitting on the patio, so people are like eating all around us, you know.
And he's looking around like, doesn't have time for this, you know. And
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah, it's like these guys, you know, like cider. Nobody cares about cider, you know.
And he gets almost all the way through, and it was actually about this time, I think 2 years ago,
2 years ago.
and we had just messed around with pumpkin pie cider for the first time. And he took a drink and he was just like, how did you do this? And there
Like
was a
went
few
from-
like expletives in there, you know, like what? And we kind of were like, oh no, all right, so
See you later.
we'll take off. It's not good. And he was like, no, I'm saying like, I'm not even sure how to describe it, because I've been all over the world and had ciders. And he's like, honestly, not a huge fan of cider. He's like, and I know that all this is apple juice, and so you have to call it cider, but you guys found something. Where are you making it? And it was like, oh, we just make it in the garage as a hobby. And the look on his face and kind of the response of like, as soon as you can figure out how to do that legally, I would love to get it. And can I have 10 of those pumpkin pie bottles to take to my Thanksgiving event? Wow. And so leaving there, it's kind of an aha, but it's also like what
just happened?
What just happened? I guess we need to figure out what it means to start a business. And so that was kind of, for me, that was the aha moment. Was here we are stepping out of the garage environment and just having fun, to somebody saying like, I enjoy the taste of this, and that slowly becomes your goal, in the business part of it is like, you just don't want to make some product that we can get out there and that makes money, but like really here we are at a picnic table, and this is the goal, is that people are able to sit around and drink things and say, I've never tasted anything like that before. And maybe there's people that don't like this one or that one, but they can appreciate the science and the craft and the art behind it. And for us, that was like, that soon became like the pinnacle of what a business could be, is just building community in a new way. So.
Yeah, one of the other things that came from that was pairing dinners. And so it was probably just a month after that meeting that we did a pairing dinner at that Culinary Dropout in Scottsdale. And we had a little bit of a following just from homebrew stuff. Yeah, and that was the first one, sold out in like 15 minutes. And then they called to ask, can you guys make double batch so we can, it's like, nope, but yeah, we'll do it, and we did, and they sold out the second one in less time than that. And it was pretty crazy. And so that's when we started to like, okay, this needs to be more than you'll see in the production area. There's a couple 100-gallon poly tanks. That was our original production that we were going to be doing our production with.
Okay.
100 gallons at a time, and doing those dinners, like, I think we need to do something more than that, and that eventually, through some other heartbreak, turned out to be good things. We ended up with 200-barrel tanks. So
those are awesome.
We went from 100-gallon plan for Arizona cider to 100, 200-barrel capacity. So
I kind of want to piggyback on, you just said, like right there, Arizona cider. Like for me, I'm anybody that has chatted with me or seen what I do, I'm just a massive enthusiast to the idea that Arizona's got great stuff. We don't need to look anywhere else. Let's look here and enjoy it. And I have had plenty of endless conversations with friends about a niche or doing something different, because people ask me, well, why don't you brew, or why don't you do this? And I'm completely fine with letting someone else doing something and me appreciating it. But I was thinking one day with a friend, I'm like, we should do a cider. There's no cider here. Let's do something like that. And he's like, well, it won't sell. No one. They already got a couple of brands, and it's like not a big deal. But I'm drinking 6 of your ciders right now, and I can tell you I've never tasted anything like these. And I still like those big brand or whatever that taste cider, but this is the next level, and this is why I think this is such a huge thing. And that's why when I seen it was Mouth by Southwest that did an article on you guys, and I'm bored at work going through my little feed, and I seen that, and that was my holy crap, aha, like finally somebody, let's get behind this and make sure that everyone knows, because it's not unless somebody introduces you to it do you even know that it's possible. And I think you guys just kicked down the door to what is like going to be like a massive thing. So like I'm so excited about it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that and that was kind of the thought behind. I think it was probably kind of when the cider started to turn decent, that we were trying to figure out. We added some red wine into one, to like a mulled cider with some spices and orange peel. I was like, all right, so we can do some collaborations with the wineries, because we're going to be a winery, but like, what about like a brewery, And way back in the day, I used to do malted ciders where they would just add basically beer wort to apple juice and ferment them together. So we made one in the house, and it was like, this could actually be really good, And so when we ended up down here kind of went through the construction process of watching Oro come to be, and hanging out and becoming friends with them is like, dude, I want to do one of these, you know? So we did a Irish red malted cider we called the High and Tight, and became really popular. But then we did a second one with them, and then we did this one with 12 West, and it started to really feel like, because we're coming across a lot of people that are like that, like they need to be introduced to who we are and what we're doing. And the brewing industry is awesome right now, and so it's cool because we're not a competitor of the beer industry, you know, so we can go in there and do something unique and different with them, and it is an introduction for us, but it's also a new and exciting product. So like this Kettle Sour IPA is, I mean, I think they went through a 10-barrel batch in like a week and a half.
Wow.
So it was an awesome seller. It's really unique, and you know, that showed us off to a bunch of other people, you know, but also got them a little bit of recognition and doing something different.
Well, that's when I came down to be able to see you guys, was over at Oro. You guys did joint forces.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that there was ever anything like that before, like a merge between the two. And just there, that night was packed. And then we came over here, and there was tons of people, you know, excited to see it. And I guess didn't get a chance to go out to, I think, were you guys at Ellsworth and then 12 West?
12 West, yeah.
12 West.
Old Ellsworth.
How was it there? I mean, did you get the same reception, and were there people supporting? And
Oh yeah, that night was insane. The 12 West release, it was the inside was packed, outside was packed, the neighbors outside was packed. It was packed everywhere.
Nice.
It was really cool.
I think the greatest part, even beyond just there being so many people and like kind of the reception being good, was that the responses to the Dead End, the Kettle Sour IPA, was the same as how you were kind of talking about our ciders. Is like, what is this?
Yeah.
I've never had, like, this is so cool to experience something new. And that's like back to what you were saying about just championing everything in Arizona. Well, we're both East Valley guys, and so for us, the Wilderness, like when they first opened, and kind of being a part of that, seeing their journey of saying like, our entire brewery is going to be about pushing the bounds of beer and experimentation, but also we're going to, like, it's always going to be about Arizona.
Yeah, support
We
the
want
community.
people to know. And yeah, and like, I know early on I had saw like an interview with a couple of the guys, and they were saying that they weren't going to do like mass distribution of their product because they wanted people in other states around the country to say, I'm going to go to Arizona, because if there literally is a brewery there that's making some of the best beer in the world, I'm going to go there on vacation, not during the summer, and and check out these beers. And for us, it was like, that was really inspiring to hear, like, that we love our state, and our state has a bad name politically. Our state has a bad name in a lot of other ways. So let's make something to start building this place back up.
Right.
And for us, that was like how, once it turned into a business, that's kind of what the charge that we started following was like, let's make something that our state can be proud of, because they can say there isn't anything else like this going on. And then these collaborations just take that to a whole nother level. Because like you said, I never heard or seen that before, you know?
Right.
And we get responses on social media from people in other states saying, what are you guys doing? I don't get that.
Yeah, we're
that's
seeing
really
other breweries
cool,
and
you know?
cideries doing collaborations. It's really cool to see, like,
Kinda like
it's
starting a trend.
almost because you know, like, it seems like the wine industry and the beer industry have always just been kind of mind their own business, separate. Like, you don't really, you know, besides trading barrels or something. So trying to like bridge that gap of, we're all a community, you know, we can all work together and do different crazy things.
Well, that was kind of my concept, you know, or little conversation that we had before we started this, was the idea that on a team, or I like analogies, I really like military analogies. You know, you have different sections assigned to a different thing, but you're a composite to the end goal. And the end goal, who doesn't enjoy a nice drink? And the idea that there can be that unity. I mean, you're going to get barrels that are, you know, from a winery, and then you're going to partner up with a brewery. and then they got something from a distillery. So having cider here in Arizona is really completing that team. And you know, like you said, it's not about competition, it's about pushing each other to do like the best that they
Bigger,
possibly
better
can.
things.
And I was driving to spot that I'm a big fan of the other day, and actually had a conversation with somebody there about a topic I was thinking about. People who are snowbirds and people who come in, it's got to be really interesting when they show up every winter and the place is doubled in what's available. Whether it's bottle shops, you know, breweries. Now that we've got cider, it's like every time they come here, it's going to be that exciting thing. So to drive that point, it's going to drive traffic back in a larger way.
Yeah, and it's interesting too to like, it's like someone that says, "Oh, I don't like beer." It's like, well, you haven't had good beer. That's why you don't like beer, right? You know.
Sure.
So same thing with cider. People are like, "I don't really like cider." Well, you haven't had good cider. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's what you guys are doing, and this stuff is fantastic. So we've been kind of sipping through them a little bit here. You want to run us through what we're doing?
Yeah, so we have 6 different ciders. The first one is kind of our take on a Moscow Mule inspired cider. We call it Camouflage.
I love that name
And
too.
it's got 30 pounds of ginger, cara orange, and some lime zest. The next one I think is a cold brew infused. We did a collaboration with Provision Coffee. Took some of their cold brew and pushed it back in, so it's got a nice. One of the things we noticed with coffee was, you know, like when you talk with a grinder, like, oh man, you're gonna get like floral and chocolatey notes, and you're kind of like, yeah, it tastes like coffee to me. I don't know, you know, and to us, it seemed like the cider really kind of opened up those notes, so you can really taste some of that chocolate and floral and citrusy notes. It was really cool, and it seems to be kind of what cider does. Is whatever you put into it, it really kind of shows it.
Amps it up.
The next one is
It's the ginger.
That's the Moscow Mule one, right?
Oh, is it?
I think so. This one I'm smelling. Yeah, you can definitely smell
that's-
it. Like, yep. That's,
It's definitely smell it.
Did I bring 2 of those?
we got
That's the pumpkin pie. All right.
the pumpkin pie. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's really interesting. Like that's
Yeah, so we did kind of collaborated with Worth Takeaway across the way, and took in 50 pumpkins, baked them, and then took the skins off, steeped them in apple juice for a couple hours with ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice.
Totally get that cinnamon.
All
Yeah.
pumpkin pie
All the-
seasonings.
Yep, and
And I'm a nut for anything cinnamon. Like if cinnamon's a component, I'm all about it.
it's
the
got
next
cinnamon. I'm
one
good. Yeah.
was our prickly pear hopped. So prickly pears, and then we add Mosaic, Centennial, and Cascade to dry hop it just very lightly to add a little bit to the earthiness.
Is that the Lady in Pink?
Lady
Is
in
it-
Pink Liberty.
Okay, yeah.
I have a question about that one, and I need you to verify or correct it. To your knowledge, was there any other prickly pear ciders before you did it?
To our knowledge, no.
Now that you've done it, isn't there
We're
not?
seeing it in other
You're
states.
seeing it in other states
Really?
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty.
You're
that
welcome.
one was like kind of like the whole purpose behind that was back to the Arizona thing.
Something unique.
It's like, what kind of a cider can we make that says this is Arizona cider? And prickly pears
Yeah.
seem to be a really good fit. And now, yeah, like you said, you see it in different states where it's like, prickly pear.
Interesting.
Didn't know that it grew there. That's pretty cool. But I mean, which is amazing. Like, it's a great flavor that, like, again, if people are drinking it in other states and are looking up, where's prickly pear from?
Where did that start?
You know, we got then it's all eventually like coming back to here.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we made it, it was honestly probably once we started flavoring the ciders, it was probably
That and mango
First.
habanero.
yeah, it was like
Ooh.
the first 1 or 2 flavors that we did. So that's been around for almost 4 years, you know.
Okay.
And it's refined over time, but the idea of having a prickly pear one, and then the brilliance of the way it looked once we started to infuse it, it was like
Yeah,
I think
that's amazing.
we got to stick with this one. This one's got to be a staple for a while.
Yeah, that one's really good. It's so smooth too. Like it's a perfect combination of flavors. It is. Okay, so we just drink now.
So we had one. What was left? The 12 West.
Yeah, so then it's the Kettle Sour IPA malted cider.
The dead end.
So
It's called the Dead End.
The Dead End.
The Dead End, is that this one here?
It
This
is.
Okay.
So that one was kettle soured IPA, and then boiled that off and blended it with half and half with the beer wort and apple juice, co-fermented them together, and then we caramelized 40 gallons of apple juice down to about 20 gallons and pushed it back in for the unfermentable sugars to give it a little bit of that, because it was really, really dry. And then dry hopped it with 30 pounds of, I think maybe over 30 pounds of hops.
If you've had 12 West beers,
Yeah,
Noel likes to go all
I
in.
like their beers, man.
Yeah, me too.
So I have a question about that one. I mean, you guys have had it out. What has been the reception like? Because there's something I want to say about it after you say that.
To the collaboration.
Yeah. To that flavor.
Yeah. Like I think Jason mentioned earlier, is 12 West went through all their kegs in like a week and a half. Old Ellsworth was hitting us up asking if they could buy some of our kegs because we don't have a tap room yet, saying like, hey, could we get some of those kegs because it's flying off. And so the reception, as far as we know, it's been really good. And when we bring people in and do little samples and stuff, it's always been kind of back to that, what is this?
Right.
Like, there's initial shock of, I don't really know how to describe it. And then as they sip through a glass, then it's like, can I have another glass?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's 8.5%. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now-
so we stop at one glass.
That's what I was gonna, you're going to run into a lot of, again, trying to like get someone by the hand, bring them in, and be like, no, trust me, try this. Because I do that all the time with people. And initially their thought is, well, I don't like beer. And I was like, well, watch. Let me show you why you're wrong. One of the biggest trends right now, and I always joke that I'm like a trend and a half behind the beer community when it comes to flavors and things like that.
Not in fashion, though.
Any any event that is built around gozes or sours, it's been amazing for me to watch like how many people lose their minds over that category of beer, and that's going to be the ultimate. Like this cider is awesome. I don't even no offense. I don't want to call it a cider like you just said, because it's like nothing you've ever had before. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was for us. It was a lot of fun because we kind of instantly, when meeting with Noel, realized that kind of his goals in his beer and our goals in cider were very similar. And like Jason was saying, when you're kind of on the outside of the brewing community, because we're making cider, there's not like a competition feel. And with Noel, from kind of day one of meeting him and just sharing what we're doing, he was so like excited about the craft, and the science and the time, and appreciated
what
that.
could be produced.
Yeah, then he was kind of the one that was like, we need to get in the lab. Let's get this going, let's get things rolling, and jumped on it. And yeah, they've been great to us. We're excited to get them down here. That's kind of where the connection came from, was the 12 West downtown Maine. But yeah, the product, it was cool. It was cool because it was one of those things when you're experimenting, just like we were at the very beginning with cider. You start making something and you don't know how it's going to turn out.
Right.
And I think even on the first day, Noel's like, okay, so this is either going to be really amazing or this is going to be one of the worst things we've ever had. and you don't know, and so it's this anticipation, and even trying it later on, it was like, it still needs something. Like it's really good and it's almost there, but it still needs something. And so Jason was like, well, why don't we almost caramelize a bunch of the juice and push it back in, and it'll just help it round out. And as soon as we did that, everybody was like, that's it, there it is. And so we were excited, and 12 West had kind of the initial launch party, I guess, and to see
that support.
And they already have a community that trusts the beers that they make, and to see those people welcome us in and not have is it cider, but just drink it for what it was and appreciate like that it was crafted really well. That was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm a huge fan of smells too. Like I'll sit there and smell a beer for like an hour before I even drink it. And the nose on this is awesome. It's got almost like a northeastern style IPA kind of
Almost like a fruity
yeah
element to it.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I've never had anything like this. Like, so it was just cool. So I'm one of those people like, what?
Yeah. Like if nobody explained it to you, because that happened, like it got so big. We thought, we'll cruise around and we'll explain to people what it is, but it got so crazy, and then people are drinking like, I don't know what to think. Like, wait, is this supposed to be cider? Is it a beer? Is it a, sour? Not really sure what to think of it. Yeah.
That's good though, because what that's doing is it's causing people to rewire their perception, because when you hear cider and then you sip and you're not getting cider, you're challenging that boundary of, okay, well, the preconceived idea, I've got to toss that because I like this.
Sure. Well, and that that kind of describes perfectly like our entire line of ciders, and how there's a lot of people already kind of like, we don't like ciders because they're really tart or they're really sugary, and that was one of the things from the get-go that we wanted to change. Like we don't add sugar pre or post fermentation, only the flavorings, like we post flavor, but we wanted to have something that, what happens then is when you ferment it out, it becomes really tart. 90% of the acid in an apple is malic acid. So if you take that sugar away, you're left with a lot of acid. So a lot of places have to add sugar back in, or a lot of flavoring to kind of balance that out. So, we've adopted some kind of wine techniques, some brewing techniques. And so we start our fermentation with, we do 10% ferment with wild yeast strain, and then we overpitch with beer yeast. So these were done with an English ale and a Burton ale. And then
how did you know to do that, if I may ask? Because I know that you said you had reached out to try to figure out what kind of process or path to take with doing ciders. Like, where was the inspiration to do something different?
So I'd read one of the trends right now is I don't remember, I'm gonna probably misspeak here. I think it's China is trying to get into the wine industry, and they wanted to do something different. And before we became so sterile with our process, your people were pitching years ago. The yeast strains weren't single variety. I mean, there was all different kinds of things happening, and so they started using wild yeast, Torula spora, different types of yeast strands to kind of add some mouthfeel. And then I had talked with a winemaker from Napa, and he was kind of playing around with it. And then everybody knows Carvin Wilson.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was using it in some of his meads, and so I was like, I'm gonna give this a shot. And it added so much mouth feel to the ciders, because cider is can be very one-dimensional. It's hard to kind of add like a big mouth feel to. So that's kind of how we got into using that. And then we would overpitch with a beer yeast. It would outcompete that, and that's where you get your main alcoholic fermentation from. And then we co-inoculate with a malolactic bacteria. Malolactic bacteria in the wine industry, you wouldn't drink wine if it hadn't gone through MLF. And so we knew that we didn't want to add sugar back to it. We didn't want to add so much stuff that it turned into a Kool-Aid. No. So how do we cut that tartness? malolactic bacteria. It consumes malolactic acid by like about 45%, converts to lactic acid, so you get a nice smoothness to it with a little bit of maybe tartness in there, but not near as aggressive or abrasive as it is without. So really, I think kind of what sets our ciders apart from most, and I don't know anybody else in the cider industry that's using malolactic bacteria right now. So we, at the end, we make a tannin. We add a little bit of tannins, and then at the end, we don't have to make any adjustments. Our final product is done. It's balanced. We can just add in prickly pear or ginger caracara, orange and lime, and that's it. So I think that's kind of. But what we're getting is people from the brewing industry love it. People from the wine industry love it. But like your kind of typical cider drinkers are kind of a little bit confused of why isn't this have like that grainy sugary feel, or why isn't it really tart? And it's because we're trying to show that there's much more to it than just pitching yeast and being like, hey, letting it dry all the way out and then adding stuff back in to cover up that dryness. And so we actually stop fermentation before it's complete. So there's very little. I mean, there's less sugar in most of these than most beers. But
Really?
it's just that we don't have that hop and grain order to kind of bitter it back out.
Yeah.
So that was our way of kind of staying true to the apple and not just getting an alcohol from it that we can make a cocktail. That it would still all of them would still have a apple-ness to it, you know, so we could stay true to what we thought was true to the apple and what cider should be. So that's really kind of
you're leveling up the form, which I think for a lot of people who are in anything, you know, when you put craft in front of it, they want to see the boundaries pushed. You know,
Absolutely.
or even jumped, for that matter.
And you know, doing it this way is much more expensive. It's a lot more time consuming. You know, we use temperature control, so we can ferment in the low 60s. Apples ferment really, really fast. It's a real simple sugar, you know. So our fermentation, instead of it being like 2-3 days, we take it to about 2 to 3 weeks, and just really allow yeast to add a nice, profile to it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, from day one, not being guys who are raised on an orchard or even really being cider drinkers, the kind of route that we were trying to go down in the hobby making was in craft beer and in really good wine. It's the well balanced that you appreciate, because when it's well balanced, then you can get all of the different flavors. When somebody makes a really well balanced stout, then you get to experience the little coffee notes that they put in, or the little vanilla bean notes, right? And in wine, it's the same thing. In cider, when it's either really dry and super tart or really sweet, you get like whatever the flavor that they put back into it, you can get that, or you can get like a punch in the mouth from the dry and tartness, but you don't really get that well-balanced like entire mouthfeel where you could taste the apple, you taste some of the hops that are in there, you taste the prickly pear. And so that was always kind of the route that we were trying to go down. And it like became more scientific over time, you know, and now there's he's got like an incredible science behind why it is what it is. But it's cool to see that there was an idea for what it could be, and now there's a science to make it how it is, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's been interesting. We've been putting out like how we're doing it, you know, like these are the things we're using, and we get a lot of like, you shouldn't do that. Like people are going to, well, we want them to, we want it to be pioneered further. We want people to say like, hey, you guys need to add this. Oh man, that's cool. You know?
Yeah.
It's a community, and it only gets better by like sharing your process. Yeah. And your ideas and brainstorming more. And like, it's not a secret.
Because everybody's going to add their own thing at some point to it.
Exactly.
And then you want to see that. And actually, I wanted to use that to ask you, you know, we're looking at and tasting 6 incredible, we're going to call them ciders. What's your recipe book look like as far as like, do you have a roster of like 100 recipes that you're waiting to unveil on us?
We did. Yeah, we did. So going from, 5, 20, 100-gallon batches to 5,000 gallons, 100-barrel batches it's incredibly different. And even breaking it down and doing 15-barrel like post-flavoring, everything has changed. So we have a book of flavors that we want to get to, but now trying to figure out how to get back. So like we're still, even with the prickly pear, we're still kind of trying to find that balance of like how much prickly pears do we need, or how much hops, So like our first one was with maybe like 2 pounds of hops. I was like, well, there's no hops. And then it was 5 pounds. Like, well, maybe we need 10. So trying to figure out like that balance. And since we don't have the money to just like flush product, so people are going to get to experience it getting to where we feel is mastered flavor profile. So
and that's part of the fun. Someone like me, I always say that I'm like the worst brewery fan or supporter because I'm always chasing what's next. And when a brewery will release something and say, well, we just added these hops or we did this, that's what makes me go back. Okay, I want to see what's
like an existing
beer that I already know was good. I liked it. Yeah. And instead of chasing something different, I get to chase that different version of it.
Well, and these will always be changing. Even the prickly pear as a staple will always probably be in here, but it's always going to be different because we're dealing with fruit. So we maybe use the same varieties of apples, but that season, it's just like wine, is going to be a little bit different. And using the wild yeast strains is always going to add a little bit of different, whatever to it. So yeah, that's going to be different. And then our kind of our recipes are going to evolve over time. It took 3 years to really have that recipe book of like, okay, this is how we're doing it. And sometimes we'd even tweak those, but we had them to where it was like, cool. So it's 10 times the size. We're just going to add 10 times as much. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, in most cider houses, right? Cideries, is that a word? Cideries. Cideries. All right. Are in orchards. So you guys being in this facility is something completely different too.
Yeah. So
we're so urban.
As a horticulturist, I was like, oh man, we're gonna get this land. We're gonna put apple trees out there. We're gonna go out to Duncan and we're gonna buy all these apple trees. And then the realization of, well, there's only so many varieties that grow really well, and most of them aren't.
And our wives don't want to live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, aren't really the apples we want to use. That kind of, we had to make some adjustments to that and say, you know what, like, we're going to get apples from one of the places known as like the best apples
in the world.
Best apples in the world.
Yeah.
So, Yakima Valley is where they come from, So we have some, we were able to do, fortunately, so since we don't add sugar, pre-fermentation, if you were to just take apples and press them, like normal dessert apples, you'd probably end up with like a 4.5%, 5% alcohol content. So that was kind of one of the reasons why a lot of people add sugar pre-fermentation is to get up that ABV. But since kind of moving our thoughts to getting apples from a producer, from an orchard, it was like we can pick some of the apple blends to bump up that. And sometimes I would add a lot more malic acid, so kind of our process takes care of that. So we're able to bump up our starting gravity by our varieties and then not have to add sugar, which is great. But yeah.
Yep.
And so this is gonna be the tap room here.
Yeah.
So what? Love the huge flag right there too.
Yeah,
that's awesome. We've got some barrels here. So this place is huge. What, 4,500 square feet?
Yeah.
And it's an old building too, right?
Yeah, it's very old.
Yeah,
it's historic.
It's historic.
1970.
The first aerial pictures I was able to find was like 1917, I think. So this building has been here. I mean, when we first came in, it was a lot different. You could stand in one corner and see across the entire building. There was just one little room up front. So it's been through a complete renovation, that's for sure.
Some of the walls were adobe.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they had a guy come in and chip out each block. It's like that big, just solid adobe. So yeah, it's changed. It's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we tried, like with the walls and stuff, we tried to leave a lot of the history here, the floors. You know, that was important to us.
Oh wow! So looking at a picture here, and those are the original walls. So you guys had to knock that out.
Yeah. Let's see here. What else? So we got a picture of the inside.
Yeah, couldn't have adobe in here with any sort of liquids being made.
Yeah, interesting. Wow, that's huge. Is this a standalone building? I only came in from that.
It is.
Side. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. So you're gonna have a tap room here. We got it. You guys are putting in the bar right now, so that's going in. Got some beautiful hand torched picnic tables, right?
Yeah.
One things you learn really quick with opening something like this, unless you have the money just to pay people to do it, is you become a handyman really quick. Learn how to weld, plumb, electrical, solder, you name it. You got YouTube University.
Yeah. Well, that's like I was gonna say too. That's kind of the whole craft of it too, right? Like a lot of breweries, that's what I love is they're putting their heart and soul into this. You know, It's not like, hey, here's some money, build this for me. It's like, no, I'm doing my normal job and then I'm coming here and working long hours here. So you guys are, I mean, all this, there's just so much heart in it.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time in here, but it's also been really cool too, because I think when we first started kind of going around introducing ourselves to breweries, like everybody's kind of unsure, but now that we've found a home, became good friends with Chuck over at Oro, he's gone through his first year now, and so he comes over here almost daily of like, okay, don't do that, that's what I did, and that's not okay. Try it this way. And so just having like kind of a mentor or a community that comes in and like gives pointers or helps out, or it's been incredible to see kind of the community that is coming around us and helping us get going and do this. All right, well, I don't know how to do that, but I'm gonna figure it out and do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't pay somebody to do this, you can do it. I'm scared, but all right, cool.
There's a YouTube video somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep, I mean, I literally learned how to weld this weekend, and so
On YouTube.
on YouTube. Yep, so I borrowed a MIG welder from Chuck and built a bar.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Well, and you were telling me too about the wood that's going to go on this. That's an awesome story. Like the idea behind that.
Yeah. We when we first knew that we were getting into a spot, we were like, we need somewhere to get some Purple Heart wood, and we looked everywhere and had found out that some of the major like wood distributors, or however you want to reference them.
Wooderies.
Millers.
They had like been importing it illegally because it's a pretty rare thing, and so it had kind of been shut down for a little bit, and so we gave up on it, and we were just gonna do a pretty simple like picnic table top on the bar, and Jason got on Craigslist a couple days ago right before we went to buy the wood just to see like, is there any big planks of trees or something? And some local guys up in North Phoenix had the Purple Heart wood listed on the Craigslist.
It wasn't even listed. There was just a pallet with some purple wood, and I was like, that can't be Purple Heart wood.
Yeah. So we got a hold of him and went up there, and they had a bunch of it, and said if we came and helped them do some of the sanding and the work today, they would be able to get it to us in time for us to have our bar. So, but yeah, like that being the center point of where us meets the customer, and that being kind of the crux of the business, really, like this Purple Heart is why this whole thing started. And so we thought we couldn't pass up on the opportunity to get it at whatever cost, even if it meant, again, picking up some
That's
YouTube
really cool.
University. What is planking and milling wood mean? We're about to find out.
Well, what is it like? So describe what the Purple Heart wood is. Like,
Yeah, so it's actually it's purple. So it's It's from the sapwood, or also known as the heartwood of a tree. So in the center of a tree, if you were to cut it in half, you know how there's a dark area. And the inside of this tree, when you cut it, the sap almost bleeds out, and it is a brilliant purple. So once they cut it and process, so this is not stained or dyed. This is the actual color with a little bit of mineral oil on it.
It's amazing. Yeah. Like when you guys, I'm sure when people are listening to us, putting you guys under time pressure, you have to have it up by the time we put this episode on. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, this is amazing. Like
How will that look? Will it be like a big piece? Will it be pieces together?
The entire, so that's just a kind of a base that it will sit on, that the purple heartwood will sit on.
Right.
So the entire top of that will be purple.
No, what I mean is like, is it going to be a long piece? Like these are long, or will it be
yeah.
pieces
Yeah.
together?
Yeah.
It'll be pieces
Like little
together.
planks.
They're in,
Yeah.
yeah, those trees are only so big. So they're, I think, about a foot wide, 9 foot long. But we'll piece them together, and
Yeah.
That'll look really neat.
Yeah.
So obviously the core part of it, like the cider core, like military, there's a lot of emphasis on military. And you guys have, I mean, we're looking at these tiles here, right? That's a big piece of, the whole picture. Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we can both probably touch on this. So, kind of coming back to the valley, wounded, and trying to figure out, like, what do I need to do? Like,
What's
I
next?
was still part of Wounded Warrior Regiment. I was going out to Balboa in California for medical appointments, and but didn't feel like I was getting what I needed, or my wife didn't feel like I was getting what I needed. So, I was kind of going out, and my military appointed lawyer was like, "You are your own advocate. Nobody cares about you." You, in a positive way. He's
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
like, you have to go seek help, And so I was going out and, like, just trying to find my own help, and through, like, connections, I started going to Barrows Neurological Institute and Sonora Naturopathic Center, and all these places that were trying to help me out, and kind of on my own dime, and they were really hooking me up too. So kind of as this whole thing has evolved, like, we've started to realize, there's a huge problem in the veteran community. There's over 22 veterans that commit suicide every single day. And so a part of that is just not wanting to go and be medicated. Like, there needs to be a true, like, something needs to happen. And so we wanted to be able to make an impact that way, trying to kind of connect the dots. And that's part of the reason why we wanted such a big space. We're going to do what we call honor nights, where we can have maybe nonprofits come in and talk about what they're doing, and then that'd be like maybe a fundraiser where we can help them out. Because I had some nonprofits get a hold of me and was like, "All right, cool, like, what can we help you with?" "Well, I have, like, $10,000 worth of, like, doctor's appointments coming up." "Well, how about a bike?" Like, well,
Or a hot air balloon ride.
like,
Wow.
yeah, no, I got a hot air balloon ride, and I was like, the last thing I want to do is, like, die on a hot air balloon crashing. So
Stuffed in a basket, thousands of feet above the ground.
So just giving them
control.
Yeah.
the exposure, or giving them an opportunity to talk, and, like, we don't always want to talk about our problems, until, like, because you go to a doctor and it's like, you are broken and you're there to be fixed, we're not cars, like, we want somebody so sometimes having a coordinator or a nonprofit that is kind of like, can help you navigate that and feel like a person is super beneficial.
Well, someone to get behind you, in the sense that, just like you were encouraged and advised that you need to direct focus somewhere. And it's not a cool thing. It's not easy, but especially, like, for guys, especially military, there's a lot of things that go unsaid.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and it's tragic. But when I heard that was going to be a focus for you guys, that touched me, because my dad is a veteran of Vietnam, and he, not going into too much, he's had some struggles.
Yeah.
But he's done amazing, because he's had a great support group with love and family, and somehow, some way, without ever going on to medication or anything like that, you would never have known. but I know that that's an unspoken trial that too many people face. So
Absolutely.
that's awesome.
And that the support system that you just described, that's part of why we're called Cider Corps. Is a part of it is a tip of the cap to Jason was in the Marine Corps, but the word corps means like a group of people focused on helping or serving a certain thing. They're passionate about a common focus. And so for us, we felt like because part of the ownership has experienced that, it allows for like you to actually reach out into that group of people and have a voice. And so as you see, I think it was in 2013, there was a thing released by the Arizona Republic that 86% of all homeless people that you saw in the valley had served this country.
Right.
And so for us early on, that was, okay, how can we take what we're doing and use our platform, because we have a completely different audience, of craft drinkers. How can we take our platform and build a core who is like committed to saying like, this has to stop. These people are fighting so that we can have bars, so that we can have these different jobs, and they're coming back and now they're standing
They're being
asking
forgotten
for
about.
help because they don't have support systems. And so how could we, like Jason was saying, we got a bigger space. It costs us a little bit more to have a bigger space, but the space is really like the heart of who we are, because this is where that core support system for all these people that don't have that support system, this is where we want to build it. And this is where we want to give a platform to the nonprofits that they know what they're doing, but they don't have a platform. And if you don't have a platform, you're not going to get donors. So how can we pack this place out with 300 people on these honor nights, help build this core that says like, I appreciate what you did. I want to be a part of making sure that like these organizations that are helping support you are supporting you. And like even being able to bring in sometimes people like your dad, and be able to bring them in on those nights and just let a group of people, let them be honored by a group of people. Let them know that they're appreciated for what they did. And then, so like kind of our little slogan is drink great cider, honor great sacrifice. So we want people to be in here like loving and drinking these different things and experiencing that, and celebrating these guys and women who have put it all out there,
That kind of bled into this tile campaign that we were doing, and is that we wanted people to like they could get a tile, have their name engraved on it, and it was kind of their way of saying like, we support this, we're behind this, we're a part of we want core. To see the change, we want to be a part of the core
in some way, shape, or form. Provide that support, even if it's just in spirit or if it's just moral support. That goes, not to take away from any of that, but I've always told people it's amazing what you can do when you get a pat on the back. And it's just simply, hey man, we appreciate you, we couldn't have done it without you. That goes so far. And then when someone feels forgotten about, it's a very ugly feeling.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. You were saying too, even just having this door open, having this huge flag, you've attracted some people coming in, right?
Absolutely.
Military veterans just kind of walking around the neighborhood.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, just kind of working in the tap room, we've had the garage door open, and multiple people every day stop by and share their stories, and it's really exciting to see, because they're not necessarily always people that you would think are going to come in and drink ciders, but there are people that are going to come in and share their stories for real, and they're worth being heard.
There's an element to that. I'm sure it's got to be exciting for you guys, because you hear the cliches, quality versus quantity, and it's been said before, and I can attest to it. The help that I've received, me and my family and my wife, beer drinkers, or we'll just expand that to craft drinkers, are the best people. So just the focus and refocusing that on what you guys are doing, what might seem like a little bit of support is probably going to be more powerful, like you said, than versus an organization that doesn't know or how to get that exposure. It's going to be huge.
Absolutely.
Huge. Yeah, I just did a Trump there inadvertently.
So coming up, this is going to be this Saturday, November 11th.
November 11th.
Yeah, is going to be that's the grand opening.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's the East Valley Veterans Day Parade is in downtown Mesa, and actually ends here on Robson, the street that we're on, just on the other side of Maine. But yeah, we wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, I guess, to make sure like that our kind of launch into this was that was the story, was the brand, was that people knew why we're here and why we exist, and no better day to do that than Veterans Day. And yeah, so we're gonna open up before the parade and be serving some coffee to all the old veteran guys. And,
like the coffee cider or actual coffee?
Actual coffee. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, take this over to the parade. If you make it back, that'd be great. And then we'll be doing like some just hot mulled cider, just to get people like something to know, like, hey, we are here for our cider, but we're also here for the community.
Right.
And so give people something that's approachable if they're not into alcohol or maybe shouldn't be drinking alcohol, or our children. And and then just kind of, as soon as the parade's over, be asking people to come back, and we'll be honoring and celebrating veterans all day, and then just pouring all the different ciders, and yeah, we'll have some different food for lunch, different food for dinner. Just try to.
So I think, and I don't know if the terminology is correct, you guys were saying kind of like an open house type. Does this coincide with being open, or is that a little bit later down the road?
It's so it is sort of an open house, maybe not your traditional open house where it's like,
Soft.
hey, here's some
very
free
soft
stuff,
launch.
but kind of a soft launch into like
float opening.
yeah, and it's kind of been a back and forth thing of trying to figure out what's the best to do, because we are, like Jason mentioned earlier, we're hustling to get the product out, but we also really want to start building this place, the heart,
It's just us. We
And
don't
it's
have.
it's just the two of us. We don't have any hired cronies helping us out. It's just we're doing like it as fast as we can, but with four hands, we're doing what we can. And so going forward, we'll probably let people know on that day, on Veterans Day, like, hey, going forward, we'll be open these days every week. You can come hang out, fill up growlers, have fun. But then we'll do a grand opening
to be announced.
where this place is open every day for people to be in and out, having a good time. But
Very cool.
Until then, you guys there's a waiting list pretty much from what I've heard, right? For you guys being on tap. I know you're with Fox Restaurants, but there's also, you guys are high demand.
yeah, we currently have our ciders in around like 40 different places around the valley.
Already.
Already,
okay,
yeah. And that's everywhere from the guys out of Old Ellsworth and Queen Creek,
Yeah.
all the way over to
West side.
Ground Control and State 48 out on the west side. And then I've made some trips up to Prescott, the Park Plaza guys.
You are in Tucson.
All the way to Tucson.
That's
So,
what I was telling you. I was showing my cousin that you go to Tap and Bottle.
Yeah.
They got it.
taking a little bit of the Sun Devil country down
It
there.
happened really quick.
Yeah.
Everything kind of happened really fast. Yeah. It was,
Yeah, and that's back to there's only two of us,
Yeah.
So driving, sales, delivering, all these different places in the state, in the city, and continuing to make it
When the
make it
time
better.
when the time comes, I know somebody who likes cider and would love to work for a cidery.
yeah. I mean, as you can see, the 100-barrel fermenters are empty right now. So we've gone through that in the first. We have a little bit stored until we get our next batches finished, but
I don't look at them as empty. I look at them as ready.
Ready.
Ready to go. They're ready.
Receiving.
Yeah.
They're ready.
So, guys, before we wrap it up, is there anything else you guys want to add?
Man,
Drink the
I
cider.
don't know. I mean, thanks
Enjoy
for
it.
coming out.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
appreciate you coming out.
Yeah.
First time on a
Appreciate this
podcast.
First time?
Hi, everybody.
Yeah,
You guys did great.
made for radio.
Feels good, right?
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we want to thank the community as well. We've been really appreciative of the support that we've gotten from the different breweries and little
Stefan.
tap and bottle shops. Stefan over here has been
He's a huge advocate for you guys.
an advocate, and
You guys rock. Just keep doing it.
yeah, we hope it just continues to grow. And people get to come enjoy
Enjoy.
Right.
enjoy the good
Exactly.
the good stuff and be along in the journey. That's kind of why we went ahead and got the picnic tables and kept it pretty basic, was allow people to kind of join our core and grow with it, and
Yeah.
help them see that it's not about how cool the tables are, how cool the tap room is, but it's about the cider and honoring veterans. So
Hashtag friendship.
Hashtag
friendship.
Yeah. So keep an eye out for their ciders on tap around the valley.
Yeah.
Come here when you can and get a cider off of a grenade. Right? We got grenade
Yes.
tap handles.
Yeah.
Those are awesome.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing would be on Saturday and going forward, these tiles will always be available to people. Like, this will be on the wall behind the bar. So there's a lot of space for these tiles.
You're gonna start adding those in. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the money that we raise with this, there's different levels at which you can. It's kind of like a membership program, and like Jason was talking about earlier, this is kind of like allowing people to say we're a part of this core, this group of people that are committed to these honor nights and honoring people, and so those will be available until the wall is full, and we'll use part of the money from that to really make some impact in the community. So yeah, if you're here on Saturday, ask. Yeah, so we have a higher level that you can get in on this tile,
Okay.
and what that'll entail is our barrel and bottle program. So we're currently fermenting in most of these barrels, and we'll be aging in some barrels too, some other stuff. And if you're a part of that program, you'll get special releases that won't go to the public. So
Sold.
it's just kind of like adding, like Stefan was saying earlier, like pushing the bounds and continuing to push the bounds, not kind of be like, okay, so we have these ciders this way and this works perfectly, but how can we take the science that we have in creating these and now add in that into barrel fermenting, not just barrel aging? How does it grow to apple wines? Like, it's just still where it's uncarbonated, and really getting to experience a totally different element of what cider can be. But yeah, that's a part of the tile campaign. So
You're ruining my plans to try to move to Oregon. I'm gonna have to stay in Arizona now.
Really? AZ Beer Jedi
Too
gonna
bad.
move to Oregon?
It was a thought.
Oregon Beer
could be
Jedi.
a-
just
No.
doesn't
you could
sound
be a
right.
snowbird.
It
Look at you.
it retires if I ever left, but I'm not going anywhere.
It was funny when you were saying about filling up the wall. Jason looked up and kind of chuckled. He's like, "That's a big ass wall."
For sure.
Yeah, but you guys get out there, get one of your tiles up on this wall. This is an awesome place, awesome cause. You guys are doing great stuff. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, and making great. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, oh, yeah, you guys make cider too. Yeah, those are great beers, man.
Right. Thanks, dude.
Whatever that is, it's awesome.
Yeah. So you guys are at 31 South Robson Drive in Mesa. Website is cidercoreaz.com. You guys are active on Facebook and Instagram,
Yep.
right? That's
Yep.
Angela back here
That's Angela.
from
She
Tin Can Marketing.
yep,
Angela, you
yeah,
want to say
there
hi?
She is.
Hi. I'm behind the scenes.
Yeah.
AZ Beer Jedi. Where do we find you?
Where in what process? I'm going to be here as much as possible. I'm probably
Drinking?
I'm gonna beg to volunteer and can't work this out into a job somehow. But no, this is a big deal, and that's why I, felt very strongly that it's like, okay, we need to make sure that this is in the limelight, because it's I think in a big way, because of the cause and really the awareness that you guys are generating. Like you said, when you guys were getting into it, everybody was brewing, and it kind of becomes stagnant. You're excited, you want to support. Seems like everybody's got to kind of work out the kinks, and you go there and it's just like, oh, they only got one beer on, but you guys got 6, and you guys aren't even open yet, that are amazing. That's just the product business form of it. But then what you're giving back, I think, is going to be huge. It's just, I can't not say that. It's going to be amazing. So
many different levels to it.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're on Instagram sometimes?
Sometimes.
The IG?
I might be on Instagram. I might be on Facebook sometimes, but you never know.
Yeah, and AZ Beer Jedi's been doing some good articles, great articles for AZ Food and Beer too. So good friend, a good contributor. So love this community. You guys, keep it up. This is awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show and for your support of the craft beer scene here in Arizona. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app, as well as on our YouTube channel, to get notifications right away when we release new material. Also, check out the website where everything's going to be posted for each episode at tapthataz.com. In the meantime, always remember, stay awesome.